when you begin to realize, wow, what I give focus to and allow my physiology to change to defines my entire way of being and experience. And you're giving permission to that.
Hey, it's Nikki Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast paced, storytelling, action item rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it. Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science, and we're going deep on a topic that just keeps surfacing in my life. You know, when you put yourself out there and you say, this is my next evolution. Here's where I'm going. And now all of a sudden, in this realm of what I'm talking about, synchronicities happen all over the place, connecting with the amazing people right in the lane of like what I'm working on, what they're working on. And this guest is right there. So we are going straight at the heart of modern leadership, which is energy. My guest is Carrie Moore. She is a transformational leadership expert who helps executives evolve from high performing doers, guilty, into future ready leaders who lead with clarity, trust, and presence. Her work sits at the intersection of human transformation, organizational alignment, and neuroscience of influence. And she's known for challenging leaders to upgrade their vibration, the vibration they bring into every room. So we're unpacking this powerful idea. Yours, mine, our vibration is our currency. We're going to unpack what does that actually mean? Why does it matter? Like, how does this impact trust and culture, leadership? And I think the key message here is this is not the fluffy stuff. Like, we think that until we know that it's not. So I'm going to ask you to really sit back, engage with this conversation, and understand that what we're talking about is the epicenter of creating the most extraordinary results, like the greatest level of revenue that you've ever experienced, dreams realized, greatest level of meaningful impact that brings you to tears because it's so just heart centered. So, with all of that, I know everybody's sticking with us. So, Carrie, I'm so excited that you're here today. What do you mean when you say your vibration is your currency?
Well, it's coming from a place of a wholeness. I would say that it's very much from the standpoint of believing that not that life is transactional, but that we meet each other at a place of value. And I believe that value, because it's in alignment to the greater intelligence that we're a part of, is limitless. And so here I am meeting you today, Nikki, value for value. And so as I align to that, and have an expectation to that. So, in advance of coming here, it's a decision of where I want to meet you at my core, my essence. Well, our core and our essence is vibration. We are pure energy. If you understand quantum mechanics, and I lean heavy in the science and the mathematics behind it, not that I don't believe in the woo woo, and you and I talked about that, but wanting to really help gravitate and capture the attention first of the logical mind. We are waxing and waning between particle and wave. And so, if you've ever heard of the book Power versus Force, there's an understanding of who you believe you are, how you align. We align through emotion, which creates a frequency. The frequency ourselves as a conductor, which is both electronic and magnetic. And so there is a science and an intelligence to us that is happening every moment. So when we have those great moments, like how when I met you, and it's like clicking, aligned, makes sense, finishing each other's sentences, that is your vibration, is your currency. Secondarily, sometimes we meet people and it just feels like hit or miss. Like I'm saying something or they're saying something. We have that expression where we say, it just went over me or it went around me. Like, ironically, our language is defining this very premise, which is a natural law. It is a scientific law in terms of who we are. So, if you understand that and really want to begin to magnetize the opportunities. And we do that by being highly intentional and to set an expectation, an outcome, to plan a day in advance, and to meet people at your greatest expression. And so that's just a composite of how I see that expression. Your vibration is your currency. I'll make one other point, just as a caveat, as people are listening and getting to know me. This is a hardcore capitalist talking. I'm a legacy currency trader. And so the first 20 years of my career and a component of that, I sat in front of 3 screens and watched $4 trillion pass through those screens daily. And so money is energy. And we can talk a little bit more about what I think of money, but it moves, it has intentionality, it has vibration, it has specificity. And the more that you understand that and align to that, then the more you can create value in the monetary marketplace for sure.
Well, I know we're only on the first question, but I kind of had an idea pop in my head. I'm like, would you like to come back and do a whole series, like a year long? Because I am
Yes.
so into this topic right now. And I had to look back. I reached out to Brittany, my assistant, and I said, remind me how I met Carrie again. Like, where did she come from? And this is what happens. This is what happens is things just come to you, right? Life doesn't have to be hard. It makes me think about flow state and a peace that I cannot explain, but I know it's rooted in a mix of surrender and belief, right? And it's like dream scenario. And I don't know how to explain because I've been on this journey for a while and I'm still very much learning, but that is how I'm living right now. It's like a client could come and say, "We lost all of our big contract and we have to pull out." And I'm serious right now, like, I used to, like, flip out, like, I would be, like, losing it. And I'm just like, "It's okay. Like, we'll figure it out." It's something. So, anyway, let's dig into this, next question I have for you. You said transformation is why we're here. You told me that in a conversation we had before. What do you mean? Like, what is human transformation, and what do you mean by that is why we're here?
Well, it is the core essence of what we're doing all day, every day, is transforming. And so, again, I'll lean on science first. Have you ever seen a cellular structure and how it moves? It's in a constant circular motion. Sometimes you'll see 2 cells that attract each other. And so if you think of you and I in the most simplest form, what do we have? 500 trillion cells that are all doing the same thing. And so imagine 2 cells that are in a constant state of movement. There is no thing called homeostasis. We aren't. We are an evolution. And so you and I align, and there is a millisecond where the cycle appears to be complete, and then it starts again. And so we're in a constant state of ascension and how we're moving through that. And so transformation at its core, let's give a simpler word to it. We are here to grow. And so it's a powerful question. It's one of the questions that I have asked clients before, like, what's the purpose? And you'll hear people give very mechanical, tactical reasons. If you really decide at a place of identity, I'm here to grow continually, then your meaning of life changes. If you're also intended to do that joyfully, doesn't mean that you won't ever have growing pains. But if you always choose happiness over whatever the growth pain might be around it, it gets very much into Buddhism and Hinduism and otherwise, right? Perhaps much more wiser people than us that in any state of being can choose a place of acceptance. And then if we look more importantly, if we're here for growth and to do it in a place of happiness and joy, then it makes everything else around that easier. And again, I don't say this to look and sound like I'm a tree hugger. You're looking at someone who gets up every morning with defined KPIs to life. But the way that we're intended to create that is from a place of not giving and receiving. And I'm a big giver. It is asking and receiving. Notice we have tilted that expression. We talk about the give and the get. In reality, and how we as an intellectual system are supposed to be interacting with our field, with our environment, is that we're intended to be asking and receiving. When we ask, it's not from a place you were talking about surrender and belief. And this is my premise, and I'm passionate. So, anyone out there doesn't agree, full respect for your opinion. But I call it a center of gravity. Belief is intended to be a position, it's a malleable position, but it creates your center of gravity, which becomes your circle of confidence. And so, as long as I'm malleable around my belief system, but I begin to build an internal model that's my identity, then we're beginning to activate the mechanics of inner model, outer effect, or what a lot of us know energetically is cause versus effect.
Well, I don't know, I'm gonna summarize in between the things that you share. There's so much good here.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that real quickly, just as a place of identity. We are the cause that creates the effect. If I collapsed all of that. And the more that you begin to understand you're doing that all the time, would you like to do it intentionally from a place of awareness, understanding the mechanics of how we create reality and how we engage with the quantum field to create that, and how this incredible machine helps us design that, then the more that we understand, as you said at the beginning, the more that you begin to feel the center of gravity, and the more the outer world must align to that inner monologue, dialogue, as well as the inner compass that is you.
So good. So, couple things I have learned. I knew this, but I see this chart that I was taught as my kind of centering on emotions have a vibrational frequency each. And when we obviously, like feeling joy versus anger, like we want to feel joy, right? Like we know that. But to understand that that equals a vibrational frequency that you are putting out into the world, that is just like a different, like knowing. And I just wanted to share that's been a learning of mine. And you said earlier, I'm a giver. And one of the things I'm working through in my coaching right now is my extreme giving. It's a control thing for me. So I love to give. I love to contribute. It is one of my favorite things. It brings me to tears when I can do something so meaningful for someone. But I've never learned how to be a good receiver. And that is acceptance. And it has to be, it's like masculine and feminine flow, right? It's just like, I'm learning this. So this is why we already have like 17 topics for you to come back on, just making more of a list. And then the fact that we are all our own creator. This takes me down, like, I wanna go down the rabbit hole with you right now on religion, but I'm not gonna do that. So, I grew up, in a very distinct, Christian faith, right? And I still definitely have that lots of beliefs, but I learned so much about what, like, religion has done to take us off track from this knowing, but how they can intersect, that's a whole nother series. But it's just really important to be aware of the whole, I am my creator. Now, can I have a higher power guiding me? Absolutely. And I do that's how I met you. But just the complex learnings there. It's just so much, you know? Before I go on, do you want to comment on any of that? That was a lot, but
Yes, yes. I mean, I think the key element is being mindful that our external world is a conditioned pattern world. And so, why we talk about we're living in an identity economy, and then we talk about what has our attention is what has our focus. What has our attention and focus is driving our imagination, what we believe is possible. These are the most powerful things that anyone can have access to, much less control in a human being. And if you don't believe that's possible, then check out how much technology, social media makes off of the attention of any one individual. And so when you begin to realize, wow, what I give focus to and allow my physiology to change to defines my entire way of being and experience. And you're giving permission to that. And so we have a lot of models that we inherit, we receive and accept. Religion is one of those as kids. Most people, your parents, what the religion is, there's a bit of a handoff model that goes on there. And some people make decisions to give that baton back and let it be something else. And some hold on the baton their entire life. Whether it's religion, politics, you name it, it's about not being indentured. And so, what I believe is true that can be in alignment to one's faith and something greater than self is sovereignty. And so I believe in alignment of sovereignty. And so whatever created me in likeness of self. That is what creation is at a cellular level, right? Our DNA is a composite of what we come from, in that we are intended to be self sustaining human beings. That doesn't mean isolation because we're built and hardwired for connectivity, but no one should be owning us. We're not born into what should be, I should say, we should not be born into indentured environments, even though in the world we know there's a zip code lottery, which honestly I wish that I could be a part of eradicating. But again, in self, if I have sovereignty, if I understand no one gets to do anything without my agreement. And so the power in that creates that pull and alignment to what is soul, essence being, which is forever. If you tap into that, you are changing the vibrational pull, which is called the tortal field of any human being. And so once you begin understanding, gosh, I know this all sounds spiritual, but again, it's scientific. And we have built an entire technology world based upon these scientific laws. Why not take them in and make them now the connective tissue in how you create your world intentionally?
I literally just asked my husband yesterday morning, we do some of our morning routine time together, and I said, "Why do you think that we don't learn this stuff, like what we're talking about, in school?" I'm like, I was so bored in school, like bored, like until I was like halfway through college and starting my master's degree, not because I was smart, like it was more of like I'm just not engaged. And like, what were we learning? I don't even remember, right? Like, of course, I know how to do math. I mean, granted, I use a calculator all my life now, but you know what I mean? Like, why are we not taught this stuff? It is just so powerful. Anyway,
Oh, that's I mean, I think we know why. Like if we were taught this, then we could not be a controlled identity
it's just
economy.
really sad. So, how can leaders begin to tune into their own energy and recognize that vibration that they bring? And maybe talk about what if somebody right now is listening and this is so new to them, they're about ready to leave. Don't leave. And so, for the people that are brand new to this or people that are just trying to advance their awareness, help us.
All right. So awareness is the first thing. And the only way that we can begin to have a different experience around awareness is to slow the heck down, slow the roll. And that's not easy to do because we live in an environment that is constantly pushing us to tell us the only way to be enough is to move fast. And so I lived in that swim lane for 20 years. Not to say that I don't have my moments now that I'll catch myself doing hardcore laps, thinking that I'm Michael Phelps when I'm not. Right. And so I think the first thing when we start being able to understand a lot of this is about having a sense of how overactive our mind is versus how in tune we are with the rest of the instrument, which is the body. And so we know at a neural synapse level, we have obviously neural synapse in the brain, we have neural synapse in the heart, we have neural synapse in the gut. And so these three centers, when they're aligned, and the techie cool world is when they're coherent. Coherence just means they're giving and receiving information freely between the rather three areas of the body. And so that's not easy to do in this environment where we're trains, planes, automobiles, drinking our coffee, honking in traffic, or pretending not to honk in traffic, arguing with the cab driver in our heads, not literally, right? Like, just think about all of the distraction that creates the dis-ease. What it lowers is that vibration, that emotional set that is impacting the literal bits of information. So the brain, through the reticular activator, I'm sure your audience knows this, is selecting bits of information and how we fill in the grid. And when it gets over actualized and is doing this super fast all the time, when we're in that high beta scenario above an overactive analytical mind, we're selecting quickly. And so 42 to 100 bits of information, we fill in the grid instantaneously, and we think what's in front of us is true. In reality, it's a memorized sequence that we're seeing over and over. This is how we drive to work and don't remember doing all the turns. Okay, so this is the incredible technology. So all I'm saying is slowing down, just understanding the technology and the instrument, and realizing that through breath, movement, and sound, I can start releasing tension and energy from the body. That's the only way we can do that. We can't think our way out of anxiety or a lack of attention. If I slow down and allow these three centers to align, then the brain, as an intellectual machine, will begin to choose better bits of information. All of a sudden, I'll realize my keys were right on the counter. I missed them. All of a sudden, we'll realize someone we love did tell us there was this event that we needed to go to. Like, all of a sudden, the brain will start catching up and we'll have these aha moments, which I think is incredible. And through grace with ourselves, then we begin to understand I was not present to what really was the reality that I was inside of. There's the gift.
Wow. And this intersects around something that I am living right now. The power of our subconscious and how much we live in. I would call myself a highly intentional person. Like, when you were talking about moving fast and the things I'm trying to break, I would time myself and how fast I could go in and out of the grocery store because it was such a waste of time for me. I don't ever go in the grocery store anymore. I get things delivered. But, like, it's so ridiculous. Like, why did I have to make sure it only took 7 minutes? Or if I'm walking, with a friend, why do I have to help them understand they're gonna burn more calories if they walk fast just to get them to walk faster and collaborate? Like, what is this deal, right? So, that mixed with this, so I have just this wiring, but then what I have been working through is this identity work, which is so much of what we're talking about here for leaders, right? Anybody to learn like this new identity, your future, where are you going? And really, how do you lock that into your subconscious? One thing I've been doing is I listen to I am uh, frequency and verbiage and all this when I go to sleep. It's magic. It is magic. Like my next days of the things that I remember going to bed with, I'm like, these topics are part of conversations the next day. It's pretty incredible. So, man, the work, the deep inner work we get to do on ourself is the hardest, but most rewarding.
I think I will say it's hard because we make it hard. And I'm not saying that it's easy, and I'm not saying that I've got it. Let me just say that. One of the things that I use to remind myself it's not hard, it's actually natural. There's a reason why we call it natural laws in terms of how things happen. The subconscious loop in how we use sleep, meditation, prayer as a way to get quiet and still is the vehicle that allows us to be present to the moment. We only have the present moment. Are we living our lives from the past? Are we perpetuating fear as a vehicle to create our future? And so the software is malleable. And so one of the lies we have is that you get to an age and you can't change, right? You get to an age and you can't learn a new language. Again, I think that's conditioned patterns that aren't true. And so if I understand every night, I can A, revise the day, but I can put in the coding, just like now that everyone's becoming experts at chat GBT or, large language models, you literally can input the detail. And if you will accept it, then you can begin to change how you see your reality the next day. That's the flip and how the subconscious loop will process along with classic body processes, right? How we process food, what's short term, long term waste, release, all these things. So is the subconscious to conscious loop. And you can begin to have the point of inception to where you create change. That is the law of assumption. Because the brain, through vehicle of imagination, will only look at something based upon the language set you give it to give it a frame. Meaning, if you see it future, it's always future. If you see it as a memory, so I'm just going to give a quick mind hack tip, that what you embed in at night, see it as memory, just like you see Thanksgiving the other week at the table, the foods at the table. It's a memory. Your brain will say it's done, meaning it's real. And so if you look at desire, the law of assumption is that it is done. Not that it's a future, not that it's a dream, because we're only in the present moment. Reality is now, now, now. And so if I say from the point of now, I remember when, and I hold it like I remember my Thanksgiving dinner when I ate too much food and I remember that feeling. The brain doesn't need 20, 30 minutes of endless mantras. The brain wants simplicity and specificity. That's how energy works, not the thought. Not that I said it 20 times or I wrote it 100 times in my meditation book. It wants you to align to a simplified formula. I remember when, I feel it, 17 seconds, end scene, done. That's how smart the system is. So it doesn't have to be hard, Nikki. We make it hard.
So good. Okay, and I think you just helped me understand a concept that I hear all the time, but I think I didn't fully understand it. So in many of, thought leaders or educators in this space, you'll hear them say, "You're remembering. You're remembering," right? And to me, it was, I'm coming back to center, like I'm remembering who I am or whatever. I think there's some truth there, right? I think what you're saying is this concept of seeing the future as a memory. That is really what is remembering.
Well, remember everything you see is flipped or inverted. So consciousness is an inversion. So if you understand that, that's the mechanics. And so if I in the present moment, because in quantum field, all things are possible, all identities are possible, right? So energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. And so if that's the vehicle, then by vibration and frequency, I chose this version of me to meet this version of you today. That's how we're aligning. And so if that's the mechanics, then I use that in other layers of creating a reality. And so I choose to see something as done. I tell the mechanics that I live from that place. And if I move in alignment in that direction, cause effect, inner model, outer world, that's literally the prism ray. That is the gamma ray that creates the point of light that you and I live inside of.
I might look like I have it all together right now, but you know the emoji with like their head blown off? Like that's how I feel right. So, okay, we gotta there's so much to get to that we probably won't be able to cover everything today and it's all in what it's supposed to be. We have so much more to talk about, but I definitely want to dig into the building the frame or holding the container concept.
So, from the point of, let's just talk about a company and let's make it relatable to the CEO or the leader, right? We've got to have vision, don't we? We got an idea of the company is here, it wants to be there. And so there is an identity of here that we want there. So we're aware of what A is versus B. If we live purely to the point B, meaning everything, the KPIs, the outcomes, the EBITDA, the revenue, lowering expenses, expanding operational efficiencies, if all we think is the outcome, we'll never get there. Like it's just proven. When you align your identity to the transformation, meaning you as the leader, you as the company, what do we do that creates that outcome? This is how we hold the container. So there's a point A and a point B. And if you remove, that doesn't mean we don't have goals and timelines, but in this idea of A to B, and I'm going to be the transformation that gets me to B, then the time frame to get there will shorten in nature. So I operate in the fintech world, the technology world, and I can tell you there's many, many successful leaders that will tell you their company changed when they lived from the identity of the transformation they brought the market. And then you check into your KPI outcomes. And so that's an aspect of holding the container. Let me flip it to another. Let's get a little more capitalistic. I'm a big Warren Buffett fan, and this gets a lot more into 20 years in corporate banking, capital markets, and covering clients with a lot of money. And I'm talking about corporate clients, not individual clients. And so when we start talking about being in your circle of confidence mean whatever is your zone of genius. When you stand inside that circle, it's competency. And I teach leaders how to move from a place of competency, understand when they reach excellence, that's usually where we hit that burnout phase. We push too hard. We can't stay in excellence. Excellence is when our threshold of control gets really wide. We're running multiple departments. We're showing leadership. We can take on more. We become equity partners. We take on titles. Like we really have a lot of gravitas in how we're impacting the organization. We need to move into the fourth quadrant, which is I call zone of genius. Zone of genius means I do the things that align to my greatest expression of outcome. And there are many of those that we define as leaders, but when we stand inside that, to quote Warren Buffett, get inside your circle of confidence and don't get out of it. When you stand inside of that, you don't take on the expertise of something that isn't yours. A team of captains, as I like to call it, that are aligned, a CEO, a COO, we know the C suite titles, when they're all in their circle of confidence, aligned to their zone of genius, that is flow state. That is collaboration. That is alignment of its finest. It is energetic and it creates significant financial outcome. And we can talk about doubling or tripling EBITDA. We can talk about all of these metrics, but it comes from a place of knowing who you are, having a vision, having a transformative purpose, aligning it to a mission, which is multiple phases, and being able to move vertically and horizontally across an organization with these type of behavioral changes that an organization has to flow through. We only do that through two things: trust and decision making. That's what scales an organization. And guess what? If you don't have it with yourself, you will not have it with your C suite team. You will not have it with your employees, your teammates. You definitely will not create that kind of experience out on Wall Street or Main Street. And so, this evolution of transformation that we take, it literally changes the trajectory of a company.
Do you have a podcast?
I don't, or should I
Love
say not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, it's coming in hot. You got a lot to share. I'm like, and I'm happy to be your interview. I'll make it real easy for you. Like, we'll just
Thank you.
this will be fun. Okay, so let's talk about influence. It's a popular leadership term, and there's so much good to influence. Let's look at you had shared something with me about the execution of influence versus the transformation through influence.
Yeah, so very much this fourth quadrant I was talking about, how we kind of come through school, we come through business, we show up incompetent, we become incompetent to excellent to zone of genius. And so when we get into these higher realms as leaders, one of the hardest things for a leader to learn is to move from operating from pure execution. And so, really, that execution mode, you should be no more than 25 to 30% actually doing. You need to be influencing. And we only can do that by creating frameworks that create sort of a ladder effect between the top level CEOs and that management level, the tiered structure that goes underneath it. And so it's this wave and how you look at your talent bench and how you've got to be evolving through like what level of execution am I? Because our zone of genius, right, our actual instinctual mapping on where we want to use mental energy to solve problems, it's called cognitive mapping, which is different than cognitive. Cognitive is what you learn and what you know. So if I'm operating from cognitive mapping and I want to be in flow state, then I need to be in less execution. I'm influencing my environment. And so this means I'm really great at being present. I don't come in the room because I'm the person who's got to solve all the problems. We all know how obnoxious those leaders can be. Crappy listeners come in and say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then the whole organization becomes taskmasters waiting to be told, indentured model. Whereas when we move into zone of genius and we're influencing, we get really good at asking questions that allows people to move through the frameworks that maybe it took you 20 years to build. Now you're helping them build a sense of trust and decision making to model and mirror within their circles of confidence whatever we need to truly execute. So the baton gets passed because you stop being the one that's doing it, you stand on frameworks and influence to help others begin to execute in alignment to that greater vision that you have for the organization.
So good. Whew. Okay, so when we were together before, I jotted down a quote that you said that I believe so much. And depending what life phase or experience you're in today, this quote will hit you where it's supposed to, I guess. So the quote goes, the way we show up externally reflects our internal relationship with ourselves.
Bingo. I was hoping you were going to get to this.
Oh, it's just so powerful. So, one of the most peace filled ways that I take from this here for a second to give me a gift is I used to get very riled up when someone would act a certain way that would trigger me or something, right? Like they were just rude. Like, why are you rude? Like, why are you being rude? And I don't like injustice. And it would get me so just in a tizzy. Then my whole energy would get thrown off. And it's like, I didn't even know what it meant when someone would say, don't allow them to rob your energy or don't let them take from you or whatever. I was like, dude, whatever. Like, listen, they shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, so on the opposite side, the gift for me in this, there's so many different ways to take from this quote, but to understand that that person who is treating the person, however, that you just witnessed, most likely they don't want to be like that. Like they're not trying to be like that, right? And they are really rough inside and hurting. Therefore, they're jabbing at others, right? And so I have certain family members or friends that this has brought so much peace to. So I just want to tee that up because there's so many different things we could talk about with it. But tell us about your quote more.
I think simplistically, what I'll share, and I'll share this to leaders that are in very intense, driven situations. We're a team that does a lot of event driven transformation in organizations, meaning M&A, private equity at the table, joint ventures, or the company's plundering and it needs to reform itself. So these are intense moments, right, of change. And sometimes in the dissecting of why things happen versus how do we create change, we get to hear the story behind the business. The end of the day, what you have to understand is the only relationship you can give the world is the relationship you have with yourself. And that is a game changer. The number of times I've been in front of an investor where I've said, I know you're powerful, but the only relationship you give the world is the one you have with yourself. You're constantly showing how you treat yourself, how you respect yourself, how you value yourself. If something triggers you, or if something comes into your field of reference that wasn't ideal, we get the wrong version. Here's the deal: we selected it. We either selected it to come forward or we selected to be triggered by it. And so unwinding that is sovereignty. Unwinding that is center of gravity. It doesn't make us powerless. And our conditioned mind teaches us to think that, gosh darn it, like that's my boss. But no, you've created a habit of that's your boss. And now you guys, we create this reflective manner where the worst version of ourselves is what we attract out of the other person, right? This is entanglement as we talk about it. And so we can untangle that and we can remove that. But it is a neural synapse habit that is subconscious that we create. And so to do that, we have to shift the identity. Starts with you. You want the world to change you.
Oh, there's so many facets to that. We could have gotten to a whole coaching session just on my example
Yeah,
right
but
there,
it's like
for real.
it's the thing, it's the
So good.
mind-numbing thing where you're like, "Oh my gosh, that drove me crazy," and you're like, but I selected that. I created that. My RAS, right? I love to call RAS like it's a friend, the reticulator activator. It selected those bits of information. I selected that energetic expression. I selected the emotions or the lack of emotion, right? Sometimes we're desensitized and we actually don't appreciate what's happening in front of us. And if we take that internal with grace, and someone taught me what it means to really to be omnipresent, to be consistent, to be persistent, but most important, to operate from a place of non-judgment. Guess what, guys? We all have the members only tag and jacket. We're all doing this. If you understand that, then we find grace to find the better expression of the person the next time. It doesn't happen overnight, and not all relationship can change because we have free will, but we do have a choice and how we choose to show up. And I think that's the greatest concept of power that we've been given, truly.
I'm so obsessed with this experience right now. I just wanna, like, sit in it for a second. I'm like, I have done 600 episodes on here. I don't know what the number is, but a lot. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I'm just so inspired and I believe it. And I don't mean to say a lot, but there's a lot to learn and we're always learning and it's fascinating. And it's like, this is the transformational way. It is. It just is. And there's just so much more. So, well, maybe you'll be my podcast co-host. Maybe we'll launch a show. I don't know, but it won't be very long before we're doing something else. But before we hop over to our lightning round, Carrie, can you just summarize if people want to stay in touch, take a next step, anything that you've got going on?
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am Carrie Moore and I am with Titan Edge Advisory. If you would like an email, it's info@titanedgeadvisory.com. I always have a three call to action, which I mentioned to you, Nikki. I always say to people, if there's something that I said here that you wish someone that you loved had heard, now thank you to Nikki's podcast. You could hit the replay on that. If you would love to have a live version of this, then please reach out and contact me. I'm happy to, have a conversation with you, your team of captains, or, whatever your organization is. Secondarily, every other month we host an executive forum and I invite, it's peer to peer only. We have topics like this and how it actually creates organizational transformation. It's typically 10 to 15 people contact me. Would love to include you in on that. Or the third CTA that I typically have is if you just want to get on the list and learn more, and I'm happy to include you in on that. So thank you, Nikki, for letting me connect with your audience.
So good. So good. And check out the show notes, guys. There'll be links in there to make it easier for some of those next steps. Okay, before we go, this is really, really quick, but it's our lightning round. We get to know a little bit more about the personal side of you, Carrie. We've been asking the same first question since this started, this show, and it is the book that changed your life or right now just has you captivated. What book do you want to add to our recommended reading list?
In 2017, and it's unusual because I was already at this point in my life inside of some personal professional development circles, but not anyone that I knew in that world. And this is how I've heard people talk about the moment that a book finds you. I had that moment, and up until this point, I thought maybe that was. I'm like, is it really true? A book finds you. It is Neville Goddard. I would say that I'm a student and practitioner of his work. The book is called The Feeling is the Secret. It's a book that's 34 pages. It's meant to be studied. It's on the law of consciousness. And I have been studying it since 2017. I'd say as a follow-up to that, another book by him is called The Power of Awareness. And those two books have substantially transformed how I talk about these things that I'm experiencing. Most people don't know Neville Goddard was taught, his teacher, that person's name was Abdullah. And I'm not aware that Abdullah ever had any written work. Neville was his student and was the one who created the printed version of all his teachings. But I highly encourage your audience to check out any of that content.
It's so awesome. Thank you. I know that we have not heard that book before, so it will be a new one for our list, and I appreciate that. Okay, so tell us more about your life as an extreme adventurist.
Well, I think a lot of people know me around being strategic. I've known for my ability to speak in public, 20 years in corporate banking capital markets. I pitch capital all over the world. And so the way that I speak, and there's a cadence to it, there's a style that you're taught that's very natural to me. And I think that gives a sense of control or groundedness. And I absolutely am that person. But Nikki, I also am on a scale of 10 on risk. I'm a definite nine. I dive in, I create a high sense of trust, perception, and I love adventure and thrill. So 44 countries later, you're looking at someone who has jumped off cliffs. I've bungee jumped, uh, fast cars, race cars, go karts. Like, I love the adrenaline. I think it's a part of just being inside of those hyper intense moments that I really enjoy. So most people are surprised, and some people say they can't even imagine me doing some of those things. For some of the people who know me really well, they know that I absolutely am a thrill seeker.
I love that. Is anything on your bucket list that you haven't done yet? I'm sure, but in this like extreme adventurist category?
You know, I had the plan and I had the day set to jump out of an airplane. This is back like 97, 96, 97. And I was visiting family. My uncle held a really high position in the Defense Department. He was first Deputy Secretary of Defense. And so I grew up in a third generation engineering family. And I visited my family that weekend and told them I was about to jump out of an airplane. And when my uncle, who flew airplanes and obviously designed them, made me promise that I would not do that. He did not think that was wise. And so bless you, Uncle Bob. So far, I have kept my word and I have not jumped out of an airplane. But I think I've jumped out of everything else.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Where is your favorite place or what is your favorite thing to do to recharge your soul?
My first element on love language is presence or time. And so being with people that I love and care about means a lot to me. I live in Miami, Florida, so I live in paradise. I would say sunrises, sunsets, the water, a glass of wine, a good book. I'm a foodie, and so a good meal out on a restaurant, sitting on the beach, watching the sunset. I coil and refuel pretty quickly off of that.
I don't think I've ever offered a guest, the opportunity to send me an invoice, but feel free. Like, this was so valuable. I mean, I am all in, and I think it's the time and place, totally synchronicity, very much alignment. I couldn't have loved this more. And there's so many key takeaways that we'll be sharing. This is a very action oriented podcast to be able to take the things that we learn and then go read the book or go try this concept or go, research more about this next step. So our listeners can look into the show notes to find those different links. And I highly recommend if this intrigued you, like, please reach out to Carrie. We'll see you next time.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.